Hey, welcome back to the channel, everybody. This is the second part of our beginner series for Warcaster-Neo Mechanika. First episode dealt with kind of getting started and kind of some basic things that you need to know how to do for a tabletop simulator, making your list, getting your forces put into a bag and then into an army box, saving all of that, and creating a cipher deck and just kind of the basics on how that has to work. This episode is going to be more focused on very basic rules of the game. We're going to go over like the stat card explanations for each of your character types here, the differences between why some of them have strength, why some of them don't, why some of them have focus, and why some of them don't, and then kind of some of the keywords and just what a lot of this means here. It feels like a lot of information at one time, so I'm going to do my best to kind of break it down piece by piece, and that way when I put the chapter markers in, you can come back and kind of easily find what you're looking for when you can't remember a specific thing. I'm going to do my best to be as informative as I can and compress everything into information that matters for you. So with that, let's get started. The first thing we're going to do, I've got the unit primer pulled up that was in the Kickstarter, this previous one. Now this has the new information for the Empyreans in it. I'm bringing this up because I play Empyreans mostly, almost entirely at this point. I will show you in Tabletop Simulator where all of these things apply as far as on the stat cards, so that when you have physical copies, you know what you're looking at as well. You'll notice on the unit primer there are no there's no symbols for certain things. On the stat cards, you'll have like a 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 little white boxes that off to the side of the character's like 3D image. And that's your health. So when we get back into Tabletop Simulator, I'll kind of show you like what the differences are there. On here, it's just denoted as damage. So like this is the Empyrean's Warjack. This is the light Warjack specifically. The breakdown here tells you it's a deployment cost of 2. So it costs 2 arc. Now, what is arc? Arc is what you use in this game for, it's kind of like a resource management tool. It can help some models have better defensive stats. It helps every model gain a red die to their attack per arc that they have on them. Everything except for warjacks, basically, unit-wise. So squads, solos, vehicles, and I think heroes even. I don't think we have a hero yet that can have more than 1 arc on them. Those all have the ability to have 1 arc each. Now, arc can be given, arc can be taken off. We'll go over all that within the rules as well. Just know any warjack can have up to 3 arc on it. So they can possibly have up to 3 extra red dice for their attacks. So let's start out with deployment cost. So we just talked about that. That's 2 arc. That's what the deployment cost means. The base size is 50 millimeters. That's basically just so you can make sure you have the right base when you put the model together. SPD here, speed 6. Everything in this game is in inches. So range and speed all in inches. So when you move, when you shoot, any of that, any of the numbers you see for any kind of range or speed, just remember they're all in inches. Strength. Now strength only shows up on pretty much warjacks only. There might be one of the Eternus Continuum models that has a strength, but it's basically like a mini warjack. So let's go check real quick. I don't remember entirely. So is it the, nope, it's not that one. I'm thinking the Marauder. So no, their solo does not have a strength either. So yeah, The only thing in the game that you'll see that should have a strength denoted here is your warjacks. There's specific abilities on stuff that use your strength to determine stuff. There are certain cipher cards that use your strength to determine stuff. Mat is melee attack, hence Mat. 4, this is how many white dice you get. Those are called action dice. The dice in this game are called strike dice. They use a base set of action dice that are white that have 3 sides, with 2 of those sides having a single hit and 1 of those having a 2 hit, which is called a super strike. The red dice are called power dice. I think they have 5 out of the 6 sides that can have damage on them. I want to say 3 of them should have a single hit and 2 of them should have super strikes, I believe. I might be wrong on that. I'll have to go back and look and put it in and correct myself if that's the case, but the red dice are better, hence power dice. So the bigger this mat or rat for ranged attack, the better. Now there are things in the game that can affect these numbers here. Tune-up, which is a special condition we'll talk about later, increases your mat, rat, and defense all by 1. The Martial Worlds engineer has the ability to just hand out tune-ups to warjacks. So he automatically can tune them up for an action, and we'll go over what actions people have available to them as well in the future here. Just know mat, melee attack, rat, ranged attack, these are all white dice. None of these have anything to do with adding any red. Def is defense. Obviously, higher this number, the better. You're rolling more dice. Armor. You're not rolling any dice for this number. This is for the most part, static number. Some units can get bonuses. Just depends. There are a few that I believe one of the Iron Star Alliance warjacks actually adds. That might be defense. Don't quote me on that. I can't remember off the top of my head. But armor, that's what the 4 is here. And damage, that's how many hit boxes they have. That's how much damage they can take. Now, gone over basic stats. Weapon points. 5 weapon points. What the heck does that mean? On your cards, it'll tell you how many weapon points each piece of equipment costs. Next to here, you'll see hard points. You have 2 arm points, 1 back point for the Empyrean. Warjack here, this Daemon, those are basically how many weapons do they have on their arms, how many weapons do they have on their back. I believe like the Martial Worlds are a 2 and 2. Yeah, I can't remember off the top of my head. I think Martial Worlds has 2 and 2, and AC has two back, 1 arm, and then they have the claw arm that's just there. So they effectively have a 2 and 2. ISA, their light warjack, has 2 arm, 1 back, I think much like the Empyreans here. So let's go down here. Special rules, Aegis Field. This little C here means charge. So when this unit is charged, or when you've placed an arc on it, and we'll go over how you place arc on models in the near future. When this model is charged, it gains cover. So what is cover? Cover is if you're within this unit, this daemon, if it is within 1 inch of any type of terrain that's, I believe, at least half the height of the model, and you can draw any line of fire from the attacking model to this daemon model, you will gain cover, which adds to your defense. So you'll roll 3 white dice, and then cover gives you 2 power dice to your defense. So when you're tuned up, remember, that adds 1 action die here, so that'll give you 4 white dice, and then cover will give you 2 more. So effectively, you're giving yourself a much better chance to defend against any type of attack there. If we come down, Disruption Engine has a little S, that means spike. You will not see this C for charge and this S for spike on the cards. They have like very specific symbols that are on there that you'll just have to get used to seeing. When this model hits a target with an attack, it can spike to cause enemy cipher cards on the model to expire. So how do you spike? Well, as long as you have a single arc or more than one arc on this daemon during its turn, if you hit a target, so if you roll your attack dice here, so say you're doing a ranged attack, and you've got 3 arc on it. So you're going to roll 4 white dice and 3 red dice. And let's say that you roll 3 more than your opponent hit-wise to their hits for their defense. So you've beat them by 3. So you've established that you hit. You can spike to cause any kind of cipher card. So maybe that card is getting automatic cover, and you don't have anything to get rid of that cover because the weapon you're shooting with doesn't ignore cover. Let's just say that. It's probably not the case for the Empyreans because most of our attacks ignore cover. But let's just say they have a cipher card on their unit that gives them permanent cover. Before you want to do anything else, you're going to say, well, I'd like to spike to remove that cipher card so that the next attack I do, you won't have that cover. So that would take one of the 3 arc off, so you'd only be left with 2. I would not recommend I would not recommend doing this before you roll for damage because, well, I guess it doesn't really matter. It's like a weird kind of the sequence of events happens you're gonna roll the 3 red dice for having your arc before this spike ever happens, so it doesn't matter. We'll go more in depth on how the attack and defense rules work. Just know that if you hit, if you spike, it's not going to affect that attack's damage output. So if you need to get rid of a cipher card for a follow-up attack that you're going to do, you can do that. Cortexes. What are cortexes? Well, on most of the models, it is the different head options that go on to the models. Eidolon here, Arcanum module is what it has attached to it. So when you target this unit with a cipher, you can charge it with up to 1 arc if it is not already charged. When this unit is targeted by an enemy fury, after the attack is resolved, you can charge this unit up with 1 arc if it is not already charged. So basically, if you go into your first cipher phase before any of your activations, and you have a card in your hand that you know you want to play on this model, and it doesn't have any arc on it already, you can play a cipher card to give it a bonus if you want, or whatever you're wanting to do with it. Maybe you want to heal it, because we have a card here with the Empyreans that lets you basically fix your warjacks. So let's say that you have 2 damage out of 3. You need to repair this, so you don't have any arc on them. You're going to repair them. You're going to put an arc on it, because after you repair it, you know you want to attack. So that'll give him 1 arc automatically on it. Now keep in mind, if you already have an arc on it, if you've already charged it, or if you have one left over from a previous turn, you're not going to be able to use this Arcanum module effect. Even if you are targeted by an enemy fury, which is a cipher card, you also cannot charge it if you already have an arc on it. These effects only apply if you don't have arc on it. So then we're going to move down to Guardian. You'll notice here, Intercept Driver, this has an S for Spike. Arcanum module, it doesn't have anything next to it. So Arcanum module automatically happens. Intercept Driver, there's a condition, so you have to spike an arc off of it. So if you're not already charged, you can't use this effect. So this says when a friendly model is targeted and hit by an enemy attack, while within 5 inches of this model can spike once to be hit instead. So these are the differences here. You can see there's nothing here. This always applies. Intercept Driver, spike. It requires a friendly model within 5 inches to get hit. 5 inches of this model, this daemon, not just any other model. And then basically what happens is you can thematically think of this as like this daemon's close enough that he's going to charge over and take the shot for another model. This can be a squad, this can be a solo, this can be a hero, this can be a vehicle, if you want, whatever the case is. He's going to dive in front of the shot, he's going to take it for his buddy. But you have to have an arc to spike to be able to do it. Same for Hound, but this has a charge, so you have to have an arc to use Mimetic Cloak, which is giving it stealth. And it tells you what stealth does right here. You know, a target with stealth cannot be targeted by attacks outside of 8 inches. So you have to get within 8 inches of a Daemon Warjack that has the Hound Cortex on it. Now, Pathfinder here, model ignores movement penalties for rough terrain. That's automatic. What does rough terrain do? We'll get to that in the future. That's kind of more of an advanced movement section, and we'll get there. Wrath, same thing as Mimetic Cloak. You have to have a charge to be able to use its thing here. Quick basics on weapons. Here is your point cost. So 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 2. You can see 2, 3, 3, 2. So you've got these 5 points. You get 2 arm weapons and 1 back. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I would only ever use these 2, which is Nova Cannon and Starfire Array. That's pretty much all I ever use for any of my light warjacks, and I mostly use Hound and Eidolon, and that's pretty much it. I'm contemplating using Wrath with a melee build, but we'll get there. We'll see what happens. I kind of want to use a Force Shield Projector with a Protean Forge and a Plasma Blade, but that's 6 points. So I don't know. Maybe I'll use Gravitonic Lash and then a Protean Forge, or yeah, I don't know. Whatever. It's whatever. You've got different abilities on these. As long as they don't have a C or an S next to them, they automatically happen. Most of these are just kind of telling you what this is able to do. This one, you know, cipher cards on the unit expire, blah, blah, blah. This tells you what the damage type is. So like this one doesn't do damage. This literally just increases range weapon by 2. And if you're making a ranged attack, you ignore stealth. That's it. You're paying 1 point for that to just walk around and be able to have extra range and ignore stealth. It's not terrible, but it's not ideal, because then you only have 2 weapons to fire. Warjacks are one of the only units in the game that can fire every weapon that they have on them. There are some other models that have a special rule on them. It's like, I think it's called Weapon Master. I believe it's called Weapon Master. Weapon Expert, my bad. So if you have the little Weapon Expert symbol, which looks like 2 blades across each other on the model card, then you can also use all the weapons. It's usually on the back of the card as well, but Warjacks automatically get to use all of the weapons that they have attached to them. So using something like Meta Receptor, which kind of gives bonuses but doesn't do anything outside of that, isn't really, it's not the best choice. Let's just put it that way. Once again, you've got charge things here, you've got spike things here. You can see it's the same deal for every faction. If these symbols apply, you can only do these things if the conditions are met, and if you have an arc on them for a charge, or if you have an arc to spend or spike over here on the ones that have an S after these conditions have also been met. This tells you melee, ranged. Oh, sorry, let's go back to this. So energy, force, kinetic, ballistic, kinetic, force, energy, beam. Why are these important? Well, some things give you bonuses versus ballistic that we know of right now. Compound armor is a bonus against blast damage. So if it says anything about, you know, causing blast damage, like if we go back and look at like the Dusk Wolf here, or maybe it's this. So like explosion and blast are interchangeable. Anything that does blast or explosion damage, if you have the compound armor bonus. You get plus defense to that. You can see, where is it? Right here. The Starfire Array, when you're charged, it gives you a bonus versus ballistic weapons. So it's important to know what type of damage type these weapons are going to do, because some stuff that you might have bonuses against it. You never know. Ranged and melee weapons, it's not super important, but it is nice. They're good to know, because some cards give you bonus range attacks or bonus melee attacks, and you don't want to get confused on on what you can and can't do as far as like melee ability here. Because if you look at like the Protean Forge, it's a melee weapon. It's got range 2. Range 2 is pretty normal. If you look at almost every single melee weapon, they're almost all range 2. Well, the Protean Forge has a range extender on it, so it can give you up to 4 range. Well, that's pretty good. It's only a power 3. Now, what does the power 3 mean? Power 3 means if you hit when you roll your melee attack or ranged attack, you're going to then go look at what your power, your damage ability is on the weapon that you're attacking with after you've declared that. So the way the attack would go is, I'm going to target your Martial World's Hunter, which is a solo, with my Daemon that has a Protean Forge. They're going to go, okay, cool. What's your melee attack value? You're going to say 4. I have 3 arc, so I'll be rolling 4 white and 3 red. They're going to say my defense is whatever it is. I don't know off the top of my head what the range of defense is. It's probably like a 4 because they're very shifty, but who knows? They're going to tell you what their defense value is. You'll roll your dice. They'll tell you what they rolled. You tell them what you rolled. If you rolled higher than them, you're going to add that number that you beat them by in red dice to the power of whatever you're attacking with. These are white dice. They will never be anything other than white dice unless there's a special rule attached to them. Now, what would some kind of special rule attached to them be? Well, some weapons have, let's see, where's it at? Oh, it's over here. So if you look at, so the Saber Strike Force is an Imperium squad. They've got all this nice stuff in here. They've got special rules. One that stays, one's a spike, one's a charge. Most squads and solos and stuff, they'll all have something kind of like this. But if you look in their weapons, they have an ion cannon that's a beam. Range 10, power 3. Well, that's not super overwhelming. I mean, it's only power 3. You're only going to roll 3 white dice plus whatever your red dice are that you beat them by. They're only a range attack 3. So the best you're going to be able to roll is 3 white dice and 1 red dice versus whatever you're attacking. You're not going to have a really good chance to hit in the first place. And if you do, you're probably not going to beat your opponent's defense by too much. So you might be rolling 1 to 3 red dice on average more if you hit. So this POW 3 doesn't seem, doesn't seem a lot, but if you've got an arc on you, they've got high intensity. So when this model makes an attack with a weapon while charged, add 2 power dice to the attack roll for each arc on it instead of 1. So with these guys, if they're charged, instead of rolling 3 plus 1 for having an arc on them, they roll 3 plus 2. So they get 3 white dice and 2 red dice. Now, this power 3 gets a little better. Now, it's okay to have these guys charged if you know that turn you're going to use them. Because if you can move, you can use them to fire. Their charge ability is going to go off. They've also got Havoc Engine, which is a charge ability. So if you're close enough to shoot someone and close enough to hit someone with their Fusion Blade or their Tentacle Strike, and they actually kill someone with the first shot, then they can also use another one of these weapons. When you're done, you can spike. You don't have to give them an activation token. And why is that important? Because you don't just want, there's no defensive value to have a charge token or an arc on this squad. So if you're not going to use them, you don't want to charge them with an arc because you only have 7 arc in your pool. And we'll go over all that when we get back into the game. Now, again, these guys don't have a strength. They only have 1 health. Now, when you come over here, same deal. These are the heavy warjacks. Their stats are a little better. Some of them have lower defense, but this guy's got 5 armor and 4 health. All the other stuff's going to be the same that we talked about before. There's not a ton of extra stuff on this that once you kind of learn how the charges work, how the spikes work, what do these special rules actually mean, how do they work, outside of that, it's kind of, you get into the flow of it, and what seems like a lot of information really isn't. It's just playing enough times and taking your time to look at your cards to constantly remind yourself and remember what they have in each situation that you'll finally start to remember. The new thing that's kind of happening with the latest Kickstarter is these mailets. Their deployment cost 1. They're basically just deployable cover, which is one of the special rules they have here. They've got a defense value of 1. They're super easy to hit. But they've got armor 4. They're hard to kill. That's the whole point of them. They're supposed to just give you some cover. They've got the compound armor, so models gain +1 against explosion damage or blast damage. It's the same term. Blast shielding, models within 2, they get that compound armor. So not only does the mantlet get compound armor, it gives everyone within 2 inches compound armor. So you're getting bonus defense versus any kind of explosion damage coming in. And then you've also got enemy, or within 2 inches of this model, you get Revelator. What does Revelator do? Anyone with stealth? Well, they don't have stealth anymore because now you have Revelator if you're within 2 inches of this mantlet. So picture this big chunk of Empyrean technology comes down out of the sky and just crashes into the earth by your void gate. When we'll talk about that as well once we get into the game. Comes down out of the sky, crashes into the earth. And then your forces come out of the void gate and they're kind of hunkered in behind this thing. And they're getting bonuses for having that thing come down out of the sky and crash into the earth. So they're getting cover because it's a big chunk of Empyrean technology. And then it's also got technology built into it to help give you an advantage to be able to see other people that are stealth. So these are used in very situational times. A lot of people lately have been just calling them in when they've got 1 arc left over on a void gate and they just want to close that void gate. So in order to close the void gate, it can't have any arc on it. So they'll call this out with the remaining 1 on the void gate to collapse that gate so they can bring it back. And that way they have that arc in their arc pool. All right, so now that we've gone over what speed is, what strength is, what the mat, which is your melee attack value, your rat, which is your ranged attack value, your defense, your armor, your damage, let's go look at what focus is. So focus only shows up on anyone who can cast furies. The only people in the game that can cast furies are any of the people that have arc capacitor on them, and most of them are going to be solos. Outside of the Eternus Continuum, who have multiple people who can cast furies. These are called weavers as well. They have different names for different factions. Almost all of them are weavers, except within the Empyrean, they're called Oculus. It tells you here, after this attack is revealed, you can charge this model with an arc if it's already charged. Sorry, it's not arc capacitor. It's this one here. The arc relay is basically what allows you to channel Fury ciphers. I was wrong. So arc capacitor is a special rule for the Oculus. Basically, if during the cipher phase you want to charge a Fury, through this Oculus, you can also charge them with an Arc for free if you've got it. Now, keep in mind, we haven't gone over this yet, but if you do charge them with Arc, while you're channeling this Fury, it's after it's resolved. So it may or may not help you. It depends what you're trying to do. Arc relay, the 14 next to it tells you your range. Phase aligner, you ignore line of sight doing Fury attacks. It's really good. You can spike on this model to reroll the attack or damage roll. I've been told that if you do spike this and you've already hit, that you would have to re-roll the whole thing. I'm pretty sure that's not right. It wouldn't say attack or damage roll if that was the case. So if you miss on your first attack, you can spike, and then you get to re-roll the whole thing. If you hit on your attack, but then you roll your damage roll and you don't roll over their armor value, you're supposed to be able to spike to re-roll just that damage roll as well. It doesn't say and. So, to my knowledge, these are split up properly. You can re-roll once if you miss on an attack. If you do make the attack, but you don't get enough damage to go through their armor, you can spike to re-roll that as well. I don't know why you wouldn't be able to. Pretty sure the person that told me that was wrong, but back to Focus. What does Focus have to do with people that can summon Furies or channel Furies? So your Focus is your base white action dice that you're always going to use. The red dice that you get to add, or if you have extra arc left over in your arc well. So if you don't have any arc put out on any models, like at the beginning of the game, basically, but you have someone in range that you can target with this 14 inches for a Fury, you'll have 7 arc in your well, because that's the max number of arc you're allowed to have in the game is 7. So you'll add 7 red dice to this 4 white dice. You're basically going to kill whatever is out there in one shot. At least you should, for the most part, because you're probably going to roll a lot more strikes than what they're going to roll for defensive strikes, and then you're going to add all of that to your damage roll, and your Fury card will tell you what the base power is. So most of them are 3, some of them are 4. Depends what it is. So there's that. That's what Focus is. Now, I think that takes care of all the different little stats on their cards. Yeah, that should be it. Please leave any questions below. Don't forget to like this video if you liked what you've seen. Feel free to share it within the community. I appreciate any of the love. I will have some links down below to other content creators. I'm going to start putting their YouTube channels and their podcasts down below. There's Hyper News Network. There's Charge and Spike. There's Through the Void Gate. I believe there's 1 or 2 other ones that I'm not super familiar with that I'll get put in there as well. They're part of the Discord community. I'm a part of the Discord community. They shout me out when I'm putting stuff out, and I'd like to do the same for them. So I'll have their links down below that you can find them at. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and we'll catch you guys in the next one. See ya.